All right, welcome everybody. So this is part 2. This is going to be in Veil of lesson 9.4. This is going to be discussing the zero product property rule. All right, what this basically means is that if you have A times B and it equals 0, then you can split it up and you can make A by itself equal to 0 and B equal to 0, right? So that's kind of the premise of today's exercise, is that if you have anything set to 0, what I want you guys to do is to split it into two pieces, an A and a B, equal them both to 0, and solve it out. So let's go. First lesson here is going to be, we're going to split this up. So it's going to be 2d plus 6 equals 0. And then you take the other extension here, and this would be 3d minus 15 equals 0. Pretty simple setup, right? So we're looking for two different examples. What you want to do is make sure as you go through this is that you would then subtract 6 from both sides to solve this equation. And you'd have 2d equals negative 6, and then you'd divide both sides by 2, and you'd get d equals negative 3. Do the other side there. This one here would be add 15 to both sides. You set this up, it'd be 3d equals 15, divide by 3, and then you also get d equals 5, right? Simple. It's simple when you set it to 0. So this isn't set to 0, so we actually need to move it over here. Alright, so that way we can get 0 on one side, so it's c squared minus 3c equals 0 now, right? Because 3c minus 3c is 0. Now what you're going to do is we have to see if we can simplify it even one step further. Can we do any type of factoring? Do they share anything in common? The answer actually in this one is what? Yes, they share a letter c. So we're going to factor out a c because we're looking for an a times b. And right now with c squared minus 3c, we don't have an a times b. We just have an a, okay, which would be one section, kind of like it is over here, right? This is one little piece. We only have one, so we need to find two pieces, okay? So here's how you find the second piece. So you factor out a c, so you would have c left here, minus 3. And that's going to equal 0. Now how did I get that? C times c is c squared. C times 3 would be 3c. Hopefully you guys see that I took that out. So this involves everything we have learned so far up to this point in this year. Alright, now we have our a times b. So this would be c equals 0. You're done. Your other answer here would be c minus 3 equals 0. So now you got to solve this one out by just adding 3 to both sides. And now you're done with this. C equals 3. So there are your two answers. Right here and right there. Right? So when you graph this parabola, it'll actually intersect at. So what this means is the intersections on the x-axis, horizontally speaking, is at 3 and at 0. Okay, the next one here is already split up for you. So you have your a value and your b. So this is going to be 2n equals 0. And it's also going to be 3n plus 3 equals 0. Now this one's simple because if you divide by 2, it doesn't matter. It's still 0. So n equals 0. Nice. The other one on this side, on the right, you got to simplify negative 3 to both sides. And then you'd have 3n equals negative 3. And then you do your last step, which would be, of course, divide by 3. And that'd be a negative 1. Alright, now, so there's your two answers there. And then the last one here is a simple setup where it has an a and a b value already done. So that'd be 8z plus 4 equals 0. And then I'm going to solve this one real quick. Let me change color to green. So this will be minus 4 minus 4. And then it's going to be 8z equals negative 4. Divide by 8. And you would get z equals negative 1/2. Now hopefully my face isn't blocking that one. Alright, so now we're going to do the other one here. So you do 5z plus 10 equals 0. And then you would subtract it from both sides. So we'll go a green, minus 10 minus 10. You end up with 5z equals negative 10. Subtract, subtract, and you get z equals negative 2. Hopefully you guys can see that, right? It's a simple process and setup. Solve it to 0 first, and then you simplify it. Alright, your turn on the zero product property rule. Okay, hopefully you guys have got this down and that you've simplified it, right? So let's simplify these. These are simple over here. This is 3n equals 0, and then this is n plus 2 equals 0 because it's a times b. Divide, it doesn't matter, anything divided by 0 is 0. This is negative 2, so it be n equals negative 2, right? Simple. The other one over here, same thing though. Do we have an a times a b? No, we don't. We're actually missing it, so we're going to have to factor something out. So what two values, do they share a number? Can you take an 8 out of here and 8 out of here? The answer is yes. Okay, so it'd be an 8. And then they also share a letter b. So what's left behind? Well, here would be b minus 5. And that equals 0. So this has a lot to do with what we covered already, where I got to make sure you guys can factor properly out, right? So if I multiply this back in, you know that'd be 8b squared, and that times that would be negative 40b. So we have the setup. Now you split it. 8b equals 0, and then it'd be b minus 5 equals 0. So that's already set up to be b equals 0 because anything divided by 8. This here, you would add 5 to both sides, and so then it would end up being b equals 5. If you don't know how I got that, please make sure you guys do a refresher on solving simple equations. Okay, next would be doing this setup. The problem is once again, this doesn't have the actual problem together because we don't have it set to 0, so we need to put it to 0. So it's x squared plus 10x equals 0. And now you got to make sure we are missing still the a times b part. So we still need to factor something out, so we can take an x out. If we do, it's x plus 10 is left behind equals 0. How do I get that? Remember, if you multiply it back in, you'd get the number above it. Now we have our setup. So it's x equals 0. That's done. Then we have x plus 10 equals 0. Subtract 10 from both sides, and your answer ends up being x equals negative 10. So there's our answers, right? Our parabola, when we graph it, the 0 point on x would be horizontally be at 0, and then it'd go over and be at 10. Sweet, we're done. All right, the very last setup here is already split for you. It's going to be 7x plus 3 equals 0, and then I'm going to go down a little bit. It'd be 2x minus 6 equals 0. Okay, now you do your simple math. Negative 3, negative 3. This ends up being 7x equals negative 3. Now you divide by 7. And you have x equals negative 3/7. That's the kind of answer you're going to be expected to do sometimes, even when we're doing like the AZM2 next year. For anybody that's a freshman going to take it as a sophomore, they're going to ask you for fractions, okay? A fraction like this. So make sure you guys can do the math, all right, with this association. Plus 6 to both sides to solve this. It'd be 2x equals 6. Divide by 2. And then you also have x equals 3. And that's it. Okay, that's it for this lesson. It's a simple setup of making sure you guys can do the zero property rules. Next is going to become factoring. Make sure on the homework that you guys can do these. If you have any questions, come see me by sending me a message and then seeing me on my office hours. Have a great day and good luck, guys.